This is Brett and some books. Today we are continuing reading Am I Blue? Coming out from the silence. Blood Sister by Jane Yolen is the story today. And this is to Jimmy and Arnold, fallen stars. The skies are dimmer without your light. The myth. Then great Alta reached into the crevice of night and pulled up two light sisters with her left hand. She reached in again and pulled up two dark sisters with her right hand. The one pair, light and dark, she set facing one another, belly to belly and breast to breast. The other pair she set back against back, so that their hairs intertwined, but they knew one another not. Ye are all my daughters, quoth great Alta, whether you look toward or away, whether you look far or near, you will not lose my love wherever your gaze should fall. She touched her eyes with her right forefinger, their mouths with her left forefinger, and their hearts with her open palm, and thus they were made fully awake. The parable, as told by Mother Anda, great-great-granddaughter of the Magna, last of the sisters Arundel. Once there was a garden in which our mothers and fathers lived. It was a comfortable place where fruit grew without cultivation and water ran over 21 stones to become pure. But one of the fathers turned to his companions and said, I want to see the world outside the garden. Who would go with me? Some of the fathers said yes, some of the mothers too. But there were two mothers who did not go. We are happy here, they said, where the sun shines on us and the wind cools us and the fruit grows without cultivation. And so they stayed in the garden and raised their children. Only once in a lifetime, some of the children followed others into the outside world we call the Dales. The story. Selma had never wanted to care for, a child to care for, not a baby sister nor a little cousin, and so she had paid little heed to the Hames infirmarier during lessons about how children were got and how they were not got. Of course, she paid as little attention to the Kitchener's explanations about food. All Selma had ever wanted, even before she had to choose the great ceremony before Mother, was to be in the woods with Marta. Her voice had never wavered when she and her 7 sisters had asked, Do you, my children, choose your own way? Marta's voice had been quiet, and Zena's quieter still. Lola and Senya had replied in their high, light way, but Selna's answer came strong and pure. And when she had marched up the stairs to touch the book of light, her knees had not wobbled, not even when the priestess's sour breath had touched her, not even then. I am a child of 7 springs, she had said. I choose and am chosen. The path I choose is a warrior, a huntress, a keeper of the wood. No one, especially not Mother Alta, had been surprised. But now things were different, and had been different for months. Selma could not exactly say what was wrong, only that things were different, and Marta gone. Marta, her best friend, who had trained all these years with her, and who was her companion and blood sister, the last sworn with knives at the wrist, where the blood makes a blue branching beneath the fragile shield of skin, a poultice of aloe leaves applied afterward. Marta had gone missioning. Selma's mother had found her sobbing in the night. She will return, her mother reminded her, kneeling by the bed. A mission year is but one world's turning. Or she will not, Selma had said, too miserable to hide her tears as a warrior should. Some stay at their mansion hame, or go to another. Her mother nodded. Or she will not, after her mission year in new hame. She may have other, newer dreams, but her decision will be between Marta and her dark sister. It is not between Marta and you. But the cry was out before Selma could stop it. But what? Selma's traitor mouth would not contain the words. But I was her sister, her blood sister. There was no one closer. Her mother's dark sister, kneeling at the bedside, chuckled. Soon you will understand, child. I will never understand, never. I will be a solitary. I will be a call no one. I will call no one to take Marta's place. Selma's mother stood, and her dark sister with her. Come, said the dark sister. She will know soon enough. Selma looked up from her pillow. The heart is not a knee that can bend, she said. Or did you not tell me that often enough? Then, deliberately, she reached over and snuffed out the candle by her bed. Her mother's footsteps were the only ones to go out of the room. Her mother's dark sister, without a candle's flame to guide her, was no longer there. The song, Dark Sister, come by moonshine, come by night, come by flickering candlelight, come by starrise, come by shine, come by hearthlight, come be mine. In the darkness be my spark, in the night time by my mark. Come by starrise, come by shine, come by hearthlight, come by mine, be mine. Come by full moon, come by half, come with tears, come with a laugh. Come by starrise, come by shine, come by hearthlight, come be mine. The story. Zana called her own dark sister the next moon. Lola and Senya, twins in everything, called theirs together. It is wonderful they did not just call up just one, their mother said, but she said it laughing. Everyone joined in the laughter but Salna. Salna laughed very little these days. No, Salna did not laugh at all. She left the table where the conversation continued and left out into the courtyard of the hame. She got her throwing knife from the cupboard and fitted it into her belt, and then took down her bow from its slot against the wall. The quiver she filled with 7 arrows and slung over her shoulder. Then she went out the gate. She ran down the path easily, her mocks making little sounds against the pebbles. She used wolf breath to give her the ability to run many miles. It was not that far till she would reach the woods. As she ran, she thought about how she and Marta had raced almost every day along the same path, the one keeping breath with the other, how they ran left foot with left, right foot with right, how they matched in everything, the color of their hair, the same wheat gold, their eyes both the slate blue of the rocks by the little river, only she was tall and Marta was a hand's breadth shorter. I love you, Marta, she had said the day they had opened their wrists and sealed their lives together. I love you, Selna, Marta had answered, as she smoothed the aloe onto the leaf and bound it with the vine. They had been children of 9 summers then. Now they were 14. I still love you, Marta, Selna said, but she said it to the white tree standing sentinel at the wood's first path. She said it to the 3 tall rocks that they had played on so often as children, and she said it to the river that rippled by uncaring. 21 stones, the saying went, and water is pure. The history. The women of the mountain warrior clans lived in walled villages called hames. As far as we can tell, there were 5 main buildings in each hame. The central house, in which were the sleeping and eating and cooking quarters, was the largest building. It opened onto a great courtyard where the training of warriors took place. What animals they kept, goats, fowl, possibly cows, were in one small barn. A second, even smaller barn housed the stores, part of which were kept down in a cellar where stoneware bottles were put with fermented drinks, berry wines, and even, in a few of the hames, a kind of ginger beer. A small round building housed a bathing pool heated by a series of pipes to a central wood heater. There were 2 smaller pools from the lower Lowentrout essay, the Dig Arundel Pooling Resources, Nature and History, Volume 57, comes the interesting theory that one of the small pools was for the children, while the other, with the separate series of exit pipes, was for women during their menses. The other building, some scholars feel, was a training center or school. Others hypothesized that this fifth building was a place of worship. The story. Selna found the deer tracks by the river's edge. They were incautious tracks, scumbled tracks, for the deer was still young and looked for any kind of footing, and the imprint of one was the imposition of a larger cat's track. "Oh, my beauty," Selna said. Whether she meant the deer or the cat was not clear. Both deer and cat had crossed the river at the shallow turning. Selna followed them carefully, the bow already strung. She knew she might be too late. The deer might have made a dash for safety, and the cat, in its frustration, got its fill of rabbit or mice, or the cat might be feasting on raw venison or tracking behind Selna. But she did not believe the last. The cat's prints showed it clearly and steadily behind the deer. She went back and forth across the river 3 times after these tracks, and at last lost them both when the night closed in. She was neither angry nor frustrated. Only suddenly Marta's treason gnawed anew. Once Selna had nothing left to do but make a hide in a tree for sleeping. Her unhappiness came over her again, wave after wave of it, like a river in a flood. Sleep would not come. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Marta leaving. "We will think of you," Marta had said, kissing her on both cheeks. We. Once, Selna knew, that would have meant Marta and Selna. Now it meant Marta and her dark sister, that black-haired, black-eyed echo, that moonchild. "I hate her," Selna said aloud. Below her in the woods a cat coughed in answer. Selna reached for her knife and, holding it in 2 hands, waited a long time for the dawn. The history. Here, in the Museum of the Lower Dales, is the only Dalite mirror archaeologists have recovered. Though mirrors play such an important part in Hame histories and legends, the ornate wood frame has been reliably dated at 2,000 years. Of a laburnum that has not been found in these parts for centuries. It was found in the Dig Arundel, wrapped separately and buried some 100 meters distant from the buildings. Many scholars have ventured informed guesses about the mirror. They conclude Cowan's thesis that the mirror was the property of the Hame's ruling priestess, and that only she was allowed to own such a priceless treasure. Temple's more conventional opinion that the Hame, being a place of women, would naturally be filled with mirrors, and Megan's bizarre and discredited idea that the mirror was part of a ritual in which the young girls called up their twin or dark sisters from some unnamed and unknown alternate universe. Note that all carvings on the mirror frame are mirror images of another, a symmetry that has been much commented upon. We do not really know what they stand for. From At Hame in the Dales, museum booklet produced by the Museum of the Lower Dales Incorporated. The story. Dawn came before the cat. Or, instead of it, Selma had finally napped a bit, just enough to take the edge off her exhaustion. The imprint of the knife handle seemed etched into her palms. Her hands ached, and her back and legs. As she climbed down the tree, her stomach rumbled as well. All night in a tree was never comfortable, but as her teacher always reminded them, better the cat at your heel than at your throat, and there had been a cat. She shoved the knife back into the belt and went to find something to eat. There would be berries down by the river. She had long since learned which mushrooms could be safely eaten, which could not. A good hunter never went hungry in the woods. She could always fish. When she and Marta went fishing, and there it was again, the ache that when she thought of Marta, it was as if she had been halved with the great sword, cleaved in two. Everything she had done before had been done with Marta, and now nothing ever again would be. Always and always Marta's dark sister, Carlo, would be between them, whether or not there was moon or candle flame to call her out. The ache was real. She clutched her stomach with it, turned off the path, and thought she would vomit, only nothing came up. Nothing. I am a warrior, she reminded herself. I am a hunter. It did not stop the tears. It did not stop the pain. The song, Beloved. Oh, my beloved, my sister, my friend, I do not know where you begin, where I end. My hand is your hand, my breast your breast, the soft pillow where I take my rest. Oh, my beloved, my sister, my wife, if you are severed from me, so is my life. So is the earth gone, so is the sky, so is the life from me, and so I die. Oh, my beloved, my sister, my friend, you are the beginning of me and the end. The story. She fished anyway. Wanting to die and dying, she found, were two separate things. The pain in her heart could not be fixed. The pain in her gut could. She caught a splendid silvery trout with a rainbow of scales. The act of fishing made her forget Marta for a while. The act of gutting it did, too. But as the fish cooked on the fire, the ache came back again, worse than before. It was so bad, she thought she might bring the fish back up again as well. But her body was stronger than that. It had taken her a day and a night and another whole day to understand that. The body has its own logic, her mother often told her. The heart has none. She buried the fish bones, scattered the remains of the fire. She had been taught well. When she went into the woods to relieve herself, she found her pants splattered with blood, and for the first time understood. The ache in her belly, the pain that spread like fire from her heart, had nothing to do with Marta after all. She was coming into womanhood for the first time, here in the wood, here in her deserted state. The body has its own logic. She laughed and said it aloud. The body has its own logic. She covered the hole carefully with dirt, packed it down. She would have gone back to the Haim. A menstruating woman did not belong alone in a place of big cats, especially with night coming on. She would wash in the river, and then she would go back to the Haim. The history. As in all warrior societies, the Amazonian women of the Dales did not concern themselves about gender. Homosexual couplings were common in the all-female society within the Haims, but in order for that society to continue, there had to be children. They were got in two ways. Either the women, who were not exclusively female to female oriented, went outside the community and mated with males, bringing any female offspring back to the Haim with them, or they took care of cast-off female children belonging to the outside world. Such outside mating, when done within the armies, was known as blanket companions. A woman of the Haims, who went into the nearby towns for the express purpose of conceiving a child, was known as a year-wife. One who stayed longer but eventually returned to the Haim with her girl children was called a green widow. We do not know why. The story. The river was cold, especially with night closing in, and around her, so Selma built fire as close to the water as she could. Then she stripped off her leathers and, without giving herself time to think, plunged into the pool. The water scrubbed at her, and she shivered at first, but soon the act of bathing made her almost warm. She looked up at the sky. The moon, full and round, was creeping over the tops of the trees. Selma stood still, and the pool water stopped rippling. The surface was like glass. When she looked down into the water, the moon was reflected back, as clear as in Mother Alta's mirror. Selma was reflected too, as if there were two of her, Selma and her other, Marta. The body has its own logic, she thought, slowly raising her hands and speaking the words of the night of sisterhood. She meant the words to call Marta back, if they had power, and she knew they did. Everyone in the Haim knew it. Then maybe, here in the woods, where she and Marta had sealed their love in bond and blood, she would come. Marta would come. Dark to light, day to night, hear my plea, thee to me. She turned her palms toward her breasts and made a slow, beckoning motion, reciting the chant over and over. It got dark, except for the moon overhead, except for the fire crackling on the shore. A slight mist rose from the pool's mirror surface, a mist that at first Selma could see through, and then she could not. Thee to me, thee to me, thee to me. Her hands kept up the beckoning. The body has its own logic. Her mouth kept up the chant. The girls had trained so long with Mother Alta in the chant that once started, Selma could not stop. Her body was cold, almost immobilized by the cold, but the chant kept rolling from her mouth, and the mist kept rising as if carrying away the last of her body's heat with it. And then the mist seemed to turn and shape itself, head and hair and long neck and broad shoulders and arms that beckoned back to her, and a face that was as familiar as Marta's and yet not familiar at all, and the mouth echoing her own, thee to me, thee to me, thee to me. Alta's hairs, it's cold. Do we have to stand here till dawn? We? Selna wondered if she were dreaming. You, Selna, me, Mario. Your dark sister. You did call me out, you know. Blood to blood, dark to light. Only it's hideously cold, and I can't move out of this stream until you do. Do? Selna echoed, and then in an instant it came clear to her. Out here, in the woods, not in the cozy warmth of Mother Alta's chambers, before the mirror with the other mothers there for support, she had called her dark sister. Marja, not Marta. I don't want you, she said. Doesn't matter, Mario answered. You've got me, at least for the night. Now we can go get dry and warm. Dry, Selna echoed. Warm. Right, Maria said. It seemed so sensible, and she suddenly was shivering so uncontrollably that Selna turned and plowed through the pool on stiffened legs and stumbled up the embankment to the fire, which was all but out. She fed logs into it, and more sticks and leaves. Mario, exactly following her movements, with two working, the fire was quickly renewed, although it took much longer for the warmth to seep through and make them both stop shaking. The legend. Near the town of Salisbury is a small pond fed by an underground stream. It is called Sister's Pond or Sel's Pond. It is said that once a year, at the spring solstice, when the moon is at its highest point overhead, the mist rising up looks just like a beautiful young woman. The mist woman will call to you with her arms beckoning. Come to me, she calls over and over. But you'd better not go. If you do, she'll drown you just as she was, herself, drowned some hundreds of years ago, when that underground stream was a great roaring river. At least that's what the folks in Salisbury say. The story. Selna got dressed quickly, and Mario matched her. Leather pants, linen shirt, leather jerkin, mocks. It was like a dance, really, the way they kept time to one another. Selna had known what to expect, of course. She had been around other women's dark sisters all her life, but expecting and knowing, it seems, were two very different things. In the end, Selna strapped on the belt and knife and grabbed up her bow. Mario did the same. Are you really are you really very like me? Selna asked at last. She thought Mario looked older, gaunter. It might have been the black hair, the darker features. It might have been the moonlight. Very like, Mario said it, and not like at all. Selna put out the fire with her mock. Together they buried the coals. there was still enough moon to keep Mario quick and eager. I need to get out of the woods. We need to get out of the woods. One moon time is bad enough. Two is an open invitation, Mario said. Selna had not thought of that. What if a cat gets me? It gets me too, Mario laughed, although her face hardly changed with the humor. I guess it is true, as the book says, sisters can be blind. I am not blind to this, Selna said. She found no humor in the situation. You do not know how to laugh. In this way we are different, and in other ways. I am you, and I am also what you will not let yourself be. Selna turned away. I have no wish to be what you are. If your mouth turns into a knife, it will cut off your lips. Or so it is said where I come from. Mario had turned away, and her voice got very quiet. You may not wish to be what I am, but we are together, forever. Forever? Selna turned back. At least as long as you live. Selna was thinking so hard about that she did not hear the sound. The first she knew there was a cat nearby was when he had launched himself, hitting her square in the back. Without hesitating, even as she was falling, she drew her knife. The ballad. The Ballad of the Cat Bride. Do not go to the woods, my girl, red ribbons in your hair. Do not go to the woods at night, for Lord Catman is there. He'll spring upon you silently, he'll leave you there for dead. He'll take away your virtue and leave you a babe instead. He'll take away your virtue, he'll take away your name, and leave you but a weanling child to carry to your shame. Do not go to the woods, my girl, if a maid would stay. Do not go to the woods at night, go only in the day. The story. As Selna turned, knife in her hand, she thrust upward. The cat threw back its head at the same time as if trying to fight something behind him. Then he screamed, an awful sound, and collapsed upon Selna. She pushed him off and stood up shakily. What? She began. Then she saw the knife in the cat's back, and Mario looking at her oddly. Lucky you drew your knife so I could draw mine, Mario said. I don't know what to say. That's a good start, Mario said. Let's skin this cat down quickly and go. It's spring, there might be a mate. There's sure to be one, Selna said, but she probably lared up with kits. That's the very last they spoke, working side by side, as easily and silently as old friends, or new enemies. When they were finished, another night was all but gone. They started out on the path together, but the moon could find them only intermittently. Each time it disappeared, so did Mario. But when they reached the road at last, the moon was slowly setting behind the hills. It was long gone by the time Selna got to the gates of her hame alone. Her mother was sleeping on Selna's bed, her cheeks still wet with tears. Selna got in beside her and put her head against her mother's back. I am a woman now, she whispered, loud enough to be heard, quiet enough not to waken anyone. Her mother stirred, turned in her sleep. A gray strand of white gold hair fell across her mouth. Selna carefully picked it off and smoothed it back. But that doesn't mean I have to forget, does it? Her mother woke, briefly. Forget what, dear? She mumbled. I will never forget her. Selna whispered. She stood and took the guttered candle from the bedside, walked out to the hearth to light it. As she bent over the fire, a voice whispered in her ear, I will never forget her either. And Selna turned, looking into her other, darker eyes. At last she smiled. The myth. Then great Alta drew aside the curtain of her hair and showed them her other face, her hidden face. It was dark where she was light. She was two and she was one. And so ye shall be, quoth the two Altas, so shall all my daughters be, forever.